Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality, and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words and these conversations embolden and inspire you. My guest this week is Debra Driscoll, who's an author, spiritual teacher, and the founder of Big Life Magic. The core of Debra's work is in heart repair and the transformation from big life loss to big life magic. Debra's book, a series of surrenders, a memoir to grief, is a love story that asks, how does one accept a gift from death when death is the very enemy that took your loved one away? It's her belief that our big life losses are the pathway to our big life magic. This belief was developed and strengthened in her journey from a single mother to a grieving mother when in 2013 her son Sage, aged almost 11, unexpectedly died. During our conversation, Debra shares the soul evolution work that grief offers us individually and as a collective as we all assess our lives after the losses and traumas of the past 3 years. So as always, I begin by asking my guests, HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
By the sea. I have the grand, deep privilege of living on the island of Tobago, which is the ancestral land of the Kalinago Carib people, so honouring and respecting ancestors and elders past, present and emerging. I've been connected to this island for more than 5 years, but living here full-time for the last 2 years. And every morning I make my way to the sea and I walk the beach, and sometimes I sit and watch, sometimes I dive into the sea, sometimes I'll spend a long time, sometimes I don't have much time at all, but there is always time because that's where I get that higher energetic frequency, that feeling of opening, allowing, and for me, that connection to nature and nature's rhythms. Because every time I go to the sea, I go to the same beach every day, but it's always different every day. So it's showing me I can change, things move. I can be still. Sometimes I'm like rough and rugged. Sometimes I'm lucky enough to pause long enough to look up and see the rainbow. So higher energetic frequency for me is absolutely connection to nature, but I have a deep, deep love affair, friendship and companionship now with the Caribbean Sea.
Thank you. And I just closed my eyes and went, yeah. In the middle of a city I am, but that's fine, it's fine. So before we go deeper into the conversation, Debra, I just want you to share a little bit about your life and what created the work that you're doing now. What experiences, what learnings brought you here?
The work that I do now is not the work that I expected I would be doing. It was never on the vision board. It wasn't like in the dream journal. And it is perfectly aligned. I can now look back on the journey and see the steps that were taken to get to where I am now. So in the last 30 years, I've had the amazing experience of living and working in different parts of the world. And all of my work has been, eclectic and varied. But when I look at it, it comes down to working with people through their stories, through their spirits, and through their hearts in helping people to embrace who they are, understand who they are, and heal parts of who they are. And that, over the journey has looked like working with teenagers in a circus arts project in the deep suburbs outside of the city of Melbourne. Like that's also me working in my, when I was 25, I was a fairy for birthday parties, and I'd dress up as a fairy and was in a fairy forest where the kids would come for the birthday parties. And I also worked with people who were homeless and had lost their children because they didn't have a house. And so the government had said, we need to house your children. And so I supported them. And I could go on and on with all of the different types of people I've worked with, whether I've been, a community artist, a healer, or a teacher. It's all been about meeting people where they're at and supporting them to step into who they can be, who they want to be. So all of that was my work, and it's all tied in with story and healing and creative practice. And then 10 years ago, the whole story changed. And this, I believe, is divine. 10 years ago, I woke to a new day, but my son, Sage Joseph, did not. During the night, his heart had stopped and his spirit had taken flight. There was no warning. 1 month before his 11th birthday, my son Sage's earthbound journey was complete, and a new journey for me began. I shifted in a magical moment from a single mother to a grieving mother. And that was the beginning for me of my big life loss journey. So I believe that we are all going to meet our big life loss, and there's more than one. But for me, Sage's passing is in this earthbound. This is going to be the biggest loss of my life, this chapter for my soul. And so the work that I do now is I support people in that transformation from their big life loss to their big life magic. So the business that I've created, and I think it's more than a business. I have a community, I have conversation, I have space where people can arrive. And it's also my business, definitely. We also, on the island here in Tobago, we also run retreats. So there's many ways that Big Life Magic meets people, but the heart and foundation of my work now is in heart repair, supporting people to shift from that big life loss to the big life magic, because that's what I needed to do, because I had no choice. I mean, we always have a choice. I could have denied it. I could have chosen to not go on the journey. But being who I am, I had 20 years of working in spiritual practice and community arts and working with people, supporting them to step into the potential of who they could be, to heal parts of themselves. And now it was my turn. It was like time to turn all that you know onto yourself, because I was genuinely curious. Am I going to be able to survive this? And if you survive, is there any thriving? Because in those first few days where you're trying to catch your breath, I honestly didn't know. But I did have some beliefs that were like a safety net holding me up. And sure, they were challenged at the time, so the net was stretched, right? So, like, I believe that the angels won't take you until it's your turn. It's your time. I believe that. And then on the day that person whose time is up is your son, you want to have a new conversation with the angels. I believe that the universe always has your back, that things are always working in our highest good. Okay, how is this in my highest good? I had so many questions, and rather than getting bitter and twisted about those questions and losing my faith and saying, well, those beliefs aren't real, the universe has let me down, I chose curiosity. I wanted to find out why. Why do our hearts break? And part of that curiosity that I had, my heart was broken into more than 1 million pieces. I was mystified that it could still beat. And at the same time, I could feel my soul pulsing. It was like a exquisite wonder. It was like in this moment of intense heartbreak, my soul is pulsing. And a part of what I've found is that our hearts do break, and they break on purpose, for it is at service to our soul and to our soul expansion, which is why now I support people to embrace their big life loss and journey step by step, story by story, activation by activation, from big life loss to their own version of big life magic.
That's beautiful. And it's such like you're saying, those initial days when the news drops, and you know, having experienced grief a few times in my life as well, you know, the news drops, and then the world kind of shifts around. I don't know how it kind of played for you, but I just remember everything just morphed into a different kind of space where you're trying to keep yourself upright almost, you know, and to an extent maybe physically upright as well. But what had my way of dealing with grief, or kind of like riding through it, or what, I don't even know what the terms I would use for that, is because one, I experienced it very, very early in my life. So it was always an experience that I'd had from almost the jump, almost probably before I could really properly speak. So it was there, and the energy of it was there. And then over the course of my life, every decade, I had someone very significant die unexpectedly. And they were usually my age. So there would be a peer group. So in my, you know, when I was 11, I lost a friend. When I was 16, I lost a friend. In my 20s, in my 30s, you know, so I kept seeing that happen. And what kind of kept me not completely losing it, but I can see how I closed off part of me, because it was no less a blow every time it happened. You know, you don't become impervious to that. Was being curious about, having a curiosity about what just happened and where did they go. You know, I like have an early memory of being 4 years old and standing over my father's coffin and just seeing everyone, you know, throwing a rose down and just thinking, no, you know, just not believing that was it. So maybe was that me just not acknowledging it, or just not knowing that was not it, you know? So there was always, when I had the shock of knowing that someone was taken from the earth, there was always this, so where are you? You know, so it was never like they're completely lost. There was like, so where are you? Where's this question? You know, seeing your friends laid out and just being like, but not, what is it? You know, that I think kind of kept me on a you know, a bit more stable than it could have gone, because then I've witnessed how people who've never experienced any kind of grief and then have a sudden, you know, a sudden bad news to them that someone has been taken, that everything goes out the window, and sometimes it never comes back, you know, because they've gone and they don't really know how to handle it because they've never had the curiosity. I'm not saying either experience is better, to be honest, you know, it's like no one wants to lose people continuously. But in those early days, when people come to you, and firstly, what period of time, you know, how soon after their bereavement are they coming to you? And then how do you start to work with them to guide them? You know, because it's when you're in your pain and you're trying to, you just feel like nobody understands, even if you know they've been through it. It's like, yeah, I know you've been through it, but this is how I feel right now. How do you speak to that? How do you start to guide them to getting back on center and understanding what it is that has happened, and also the journey that they are on now from the big loss onwards?
Wow. The first thing, like for us all to hear and breathe in and to know, is that the shock lasts longer than we allow it. So what you talk about those first couple of days of like, well, this person is gone and the world around me is moving in this different way, there's a few things that are happening there. Shock is like rippling through your physical body and your energetic body and your spiritual body, your soul body. So understand it in this way. When we have a big loss, it is actually like a trauma. Like you at 4-year-old, I can't understand this. You know, like there's something about trauma that doesn't connect for us. It's like, this is wrong, you know? And so our body goes into a trauma response, and our nervous system is doing a whole heap of crazy things. Our amygdala, our the amygdala that keeps us safe with like, am I going to flee now or do I fight now? Our amygdala is firing, cortisol is running through the body. So your physical body is literally in shock and coping with the blow, like the trauma blow of the news. Your energetic body is now responding to that. And your soul, like your deeper, higher I am present soul part of you, is needing to realign, because your soul had been aligned with that person, whether it's for soul contracts or they're in your soul family or whatever the case may be, but there's a major soul realignment. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot going on at the same time as everything else that goes on with a loss. You know, what's happening with the people around you, who's supporting you or not supporting you. You know, like there's a lot that happens. So in that acute phase, what I like to tell people is ground down. Understand the shock is going to take longer than we want it to. We don't actually give ourselves enough time to notice, actually, I'm not grieving yet. I'm just coping now. I'm trying to find center. I need to relax and calm down my physical body, pull my energetic body back together and give my soul some time to realign. So when people come to me in like that acute part, I don't start working with them. They're not ready. You can't start a big life loss journey when your soul is still shaking and bouncing around and your nervous system is erratic. What I do then is I support them with some simple activation, what I call activation. Some people might call an exercise or whatever the case may be. I just tell them a few things that are going to support them. And often the thing that supports them the most is the fact that I've heard them and I'm listening and I'm reaffirming to them, yes, everything is shaking now. You're not supposed to walk forward yet. Just find ways. And, you know, and that is breath, connecting to nature, hugging people that you love, turning off stimulants that aren't going to support you, whether that's, you know, the TV, the phone, the wine, you know, whatever it is that you might reach to. If it's available to you and it's something that, you know, is you feel it's going to support you, like it's not a new thing you're trying. Meditation, absolutely. But if you're not a meditator, just go and find a tree and stand underneath it and breathe. So that's, you know, that in those early days, that's what's happening. And unfortunately, what can happen for some people is they never actually really find that back to ground. They start moving in a direction from that ungrounded, everything is bouncing and freaking out place. And then they're playing catch up, or they're wondering why they never actually feel better. So they're moving forward with a major misalignment. It's almost like you have to, you know, like, do not collect your $200, you know, do not pass go. Like, you know, it's that in the Monopoly game. It's just like, oh man, I got on that one. It's like, but it's still workable. It's just like, okay, so now let's go back to simple. Are you breathing? Are you acknowledging? Do you feel connected to the earth? And then once people feel that they are, then you can begin the work of a big life loss to a big life magic journey.
Right. Thank you for that. It's I think because it's just not talked about, you know, it's how people feel during that period of time, and the fact that so much is happening on so many different levels, and the way that things happen in, especially in this country, this culture, is that happens and everyone's like all systems go, because, you know, you've got to go through the rituals of whatever you're going to do in terms of like burial, cremation or anything like that. So you find that then you get this influx of people, and then once that's over, then everyone goes out and you're just standing there like, you know, the tide's just gone out and trying to work out what happens. And then you're back to work and trying to pull things together. And then there's probably financial stuff that you have to deal with, and all of these different things. So would you say that is a, you know, that time of kind of coming out of that period that you're talking about to getting to that point of groundedness, that there, how long, and I know this is, you know, just not a good question, but I'm going to ask it so that you can explain that, you know, how long is a piece of string? At what point are people starting to feel that, okay, that you would move forward and go, okay, we're ready to kind of go deeper into the work now? Maybe in time scale, or in terms of what you're seeing and what they're feeling, the conversation that they're open to have, so that you're, okay, this person is ready for me now to move forward.
I work with the moon. So the first thing that came to mind is you want at least a lunar cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So you want the moon to move through a whole lunar cycle, at least after somebody passes, before you move towards the, you know, the work and the journey of it. Like, just allow initially. And then for some people, it is quite early after. It's within, you know, a month or two that they know that they need some support, that they're going to need some support. There's some people I've worked with and the loss happened years ago. So really, it doesn't actually matter about the time. It does matter about where you are energetically. Like, if people do come to me and I feel that their energy is not in ground, as I said, I support them with finding ground. I stay connected to them. And then when they're grounded, we begin. For some other people, you know, it's potentially been months, if not years, between the loss and the stepping onto the journey. Mm-hmm. And this is what I like to share with people about that. There are people who believe that they have grieved. And they have a little bit. The thing about grief is we don't know how to do it. We don't have language around it. We don't have clear structure. Like, we have the 5 stages of grief. Most people will know that. Not everyone can remember what those 5 are. Somewhere along the line, someone said it takes at least a year. So everyone's like, okay, so in a year's time, I'll be good. That happened to me. Like, when I was 20, turning 21, the very first man I ever fell in love with, his name is Nick. He chose to take his own life. He called me up and he said, I love you and I'm sorry. And then he went and took his life that night. I thought he was apologizing for a fight that we had earlier, but he was apologizing because he was just about to break my heart. I'd been trying to support him in finding his way back to the straight and narrow, out of his mental health phase. And I knew that we were losing ground. And the fight I was having with him was just like, please just journey with me. I'll hold your hand. We'll find the way. And he was already at the end of his capacity to hold on. So Nick dies, and it's the first major death of my life. And not only for me, but also for everyone in our peer group. We're in the final year of a theatre degree. So we're all drama students now facing death. So you can imagine the script and all of the chapters and characters and who took center stage at different times. And we all did an excellent job at working towards supporting each other. But the catch here is we didn't know how. Mm-hmm. The way that we supported each other was definitely through storytelling and being together, because we were the theatre kids. We're all about storytelling and being together in the ensemble. But that ensemble was also fed by jugs of beer at our favourite pub and, a whole heap of joints and homemade bongs. And we were 20, turning 21. This is how we did it. And I remember at that point being like, we all just need to survive this year. And then 7 months into that year, my father died of a sudden heart attack. I came home from work one day to find two of my sisters standing in my living room, which was strange. I was like, what are my sisters doing here on a Tuesday or a Thursday? And my sister Sandra stepped forward and, broke my heart again with 3 words: Dad died today. And so I had these 2 major big life losses, 20 and then 21. And my response was to light some candles, drink a lot of beer, and smoke the next joint. And I believed I was grieving. Mm. And I was grieving, but I was also numbing, denying, and wishing it away. And so a couple of years later, I can't get out of the shower. I'm sitting in the shower with the water running over me, and my tears are stronger than the shower. I cannot stop crying. I'm just holding myself, sitting in the shower, and just like, I can't get out of the shower. I just can't get out of the shower. I can't go to work today. I can't face anything. I can't even grab a towel. Like it was just, I just broke in that moment. And in the repair of that, I was given medication, which I didn't want to take. And I had to weekly go and see the psychologist, who I didn't want to see. But because I didn't want to take the medication and I wanted to figure out what was going on, I chose to go and see the psychologist every week. And I remember being shocked, completely floored, when she said to me, "You are grieving. You have undigested grief." I was like, what? But that's a couple of years ago that all happened to me. But it was still in my nervous system. It was still in my spiritual body. My soul was still saying, please, can we learn some lessons through your heart? Because I want to expand. And I can't because I'm still shaking. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I really learned. By now I'm 23, turning 24. And I was like, whoa, grief. She is patient. She is going to wait for you. She will wait and wait and knock at your heart and knock at your heart. And so we get to decide when we choose to go on our big life loss to our big life magic journey. And some people will choose not to go on it at all. Mm-hmm. But don't you worry, grief will wait.
Yeah. And I want to respond to that as well. We kind of spoke about it briefly when it comes to the collective grief that has been unacknowledged in society across the world. And there's been, multiple times when there's been kind of big grieving experiences. Like, usually we have an outpouring of grief when we have like a big figure, like we had the Queen die here, and or celebrities, and people kind of go into this grieving. And even before I go in, like just reminding me of when I first moved to London and Diana died, and seeing all these people come, and we got there really early, so it was even before the flowers that everyone remembers seeing at at the palace. But then watching things unfold over the course of the week and seeing how the nation, you know, you get told that the nation is grieving, the nation is grieving, the nation is grieving. So this is the messaging that gets told to you. You are grieving, we are grieving, all of us together are grieving. Everyone wears black, everyone's somber. You know, you kind of are really, if anyone laughs around you, you tell them they're being disrespectful. You know, there's only a certain amount of emotional responses you can have when you're grieving. And then especially watching, you know, the public in the funeral, how so many people were responding with tears coming out of their eyes. And I'm just thinking, who and what are they crying about? Because ultimately that was just someone who was presented to them in a screen. It was, you know, it's a fantasy, it's a fairy tale. It's as real as it is to us, as real as it was that she got brought into our lives as a figure that we kind of, you know, liked or disliked, or whatever your opinion of it was. She was like clear and present, and very present as well during her lifetime, especially in the UK. And kind of tying that now, seeing how the public got an opportunity to express their grief, whether they were grieving for that or they were just, you know, they had the space to grieve for something that was latent within them. And what I'm feeling now is, because we had this traumatic event, you know, the pandemic of 2020, and then people lost so much. And even if they didn't lose their lives or lives of people within their families, it caused such a rift. So there'd be loss of relationships, there'd be loss of the way that people work. There'd be loss of what the world looks like, or what you think about the people who are put in positions of power and authority and how they ran things. So it's shifted, and yet everyone's kind of gone back to normal without necessarily really acknowledging what has happened, or maybe still blaming things like the price of everything's gone up and it's this person's fault and it's that person's fault and it's mismanagement of stuff. So still externalizing the pain that we're individually not acknowledging within ourselves, that we all collectively went through something that was horrific. Whatever you think about whatever happened, it was a horrific thing to see everyone around you change their behavior, the fear that was palpable, you know, to be amongst that for 2-3 years. And then now we're like, oh, we're good now, it's fine, you know, like everything's a bit more expensive, but it's okay. There's just so much that's unacknowledged about that. There's so much grief that isn't acknowledged about that, just the grieving of that previous world and what we're going into. And like you say, you have that loss and then you go into that magic. And I believe that we have an opportunity, for as many of us that want to take it and acknowledge the loss, to then go into the magic, or the ones that will choose not to ever acknowledge the grief about it. But you said that you were running grief circles during that time, and I'd just like you to speak on what you were seeing and how you were serving during that period.
Yeah, so in the early pandemic, I was still based up in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. I lived in, you know, your classic Brooklyn apartment where you look out the window and you see more Brooklyn buildings. And I had a little bit of sky. And because we were all sheltering in place, et cetera, I, you know, pushed my desk, which was actually my kitchen table, now my desk, because everyone would have that at home office, up against the window so that I could look out to the sky.
Right.
And so I was working online, creating community opportunities with some different, you know, different artists and activists and entrepreneurs that I know in various different ways. And I remember sitting there one day, and we'd just finished a Zoom call, and I looked up out of the window across the buildings to my little patch of sky, and I could see it. I could see the grief wave coming. And what I was aware of is I was like, I don't know if everyone else can see it. Mm. And it was in this moment of actually removing myself from the small screen to looking out and looking wider into the horizon. And through my senses and my intuition, that's how I saw the grief wave coming. I was like, wow, it's coming for us all. And this was in April So this is early. So the March into early April was when it was in that shock phase where we're all, our nervous system, it was sustained longer than that. But I was like, okay, so once we all come to ground and realize that this isn't going to go away and it's going to be sustained, grief is coming. And I was also in New York City. There was a lot of lives being lost daily, jobs being lost, people being separated from family for different reasons. There was just layer upon layer of it. And so what I decided was to offer what I called Moments in May. So on the 5th of May is my son Sage's birthday. And because I can't celebrate him growing up anymore, since his death, I have celebrated that as the birth day. That's the day I gave birth. That's the day that Sage came to Earth and we began our journey together as two earthbound souls. So I actually still celebrate the day. And what I would do, what I do is I buy myself a present because I'm the one who gave birth, because it was deeply painful after he died that I couldn't buy presents for him anymore and that my little boy wasn't growing up. And so I reframed that with, well, it's the day that I, the mother in me that gave birth, I deserve a present today. And I deserve to be with this day. And in late April 2020, I was like, you know what? We all need a present. And this is the year where we all need a present. So it's not going to be about the 5th of May. It's going to be about the month of May. And this all came in this moment of like seeing the grief wave and then processing that with like, I don't think anyone else can see it. I don't know. What can I do? How can I help? And you know, you've been at the beach before where the big wave comes. You can't stop it. It is going to crash. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is let everyone know it's coming, dive underneath it.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you work. You can't even run to shore because the wave's going to get you. So I was like, okay, so let's support that. Provide the space where people can dive under the wave. So Moments in May was 30-minute Zoom sessions with me, and you could take your moment. And I created a calendar and a calendar link with a whole heap of 30-minute sessions for the whole month of May. And I just sent word out that Moments in May was an offer and anybody could book themselves in. And my May was completely booked with Moments in May. Initially by people I knew, and then word got around that Moments in May was an opportunity. And so my calendar filled up. And so by the end of May, I'd met all these new people through my Zoom screen who were connected in various ways from the initial people connected. It was like a massive web that went out across the world. And this is what I discovered in Moments in May. I created Moments in May to give moment per person to be able to dive underneath that wave, to sit with a grief guide and to be with your grief. And what happened for most of the moments, not all, but most of them, is people ask me about magic. So it was, I hear that you read oracle cards. Could you pull a card for me? I never really got into this whole universe message stuff, but I'm sure the universe has got a message about this COVID pandemic thing. What is it? Can you share that? I've been thinking about trying meditation for the past couple of years, but I never actually got around to it. Now's a good time. How do you start a meditation practice? These are the types of questions that were with me in these Moments in May. And of course, I responded to whatever came, like whether it was someone who wanted to work with the cards or learn about meditation or talk about energy and this universal stuff that they never really bought into. And so what I discovered by the end of May is I prepared for the wave of grief, but I didn't look what's behind that grief. And behind that grief is the magic that was coming right behind it. And that's what people were craving. And then this is where Big Life Magic was built out of that. I was like, absolutely, I can help heal hearts. And also I can help people to create structure around their spiritual practice and embracing their magic, because I believe in both and I believe they have a deep relationship. So I think two things happened out of the pandemic, which are now inform my work. One being people became more aware of their energetic selves because of either being sheltering in place and being still long enough to feel themselves as an energy being, or just this knowing that the energy of the whole world is changing. So our sensitivity to it. And some people wanted some answers they never had questions about before. Like there's so many people who work in spiritual practice or healing or light worker type of energy. So many people in 2020 were called to attention. It's time to get to work now. And that's what happened to me. It's time to get to work now. Mm. It's time to be offering spiritual practice and spaces where people can turn up to actually tap into their magic. And the other thing that I think happened at the same time as that is it's easy to ignore the grief by tapping into the magic. Mm. So the big life loss to big life magic journey is you don't get to the magic until you've been through the loss. And that's all about how our energetic hearts heal and that connection between our energetic hearts and our souls.
Do you have anything more to say about that process before we move to the magic and the joy of it?
Yeah, let me just talk about the energetic heart, just so that people can understand it, because this is this took me a while to actually understand, because I had this question, hearts break and souls bounce. Why? What's going on? Why do our hearts break? What is the purpose? Because it's not just about somebody who died. Big life loss might be what I call the 4 Ds: death, divorce, diagnosis, or the dream that doesn't come true. And I believe we're all going to be met by at least one big life loss, if not more. There's not many people I've met who have not been met by at least one of those Ds in their life. So what happens when we meet a big life loss is our hearts break. So now I'm talking about the energetic heart. So some people might call it the heart chakra, or it might just be your heart center. But your energetic heart breaks, and it breaks on purpose. It breaks open. It tears. And the reason it's doing that is so that you are given the opportunity to place your focus on the heart repair. Like you have to. Your heart is broken. You can't just pretend and carry on, or you can, but you're going to fall on your face pretty quickly. It's like when you meet a big life loss, it is undeniable that your heart has broken. So it's like working with the developing of a muscle in our physical body. So if you're thinking about, I want to get some really nice ripped biceps. So what am I going to do? I'm going to do the reps. I'm going to work the weights. I'm going to do what is going to help me, because I know that develops muscle. So when you're working, doing your bicep curls and you're doing it correctly, the next day, your bicep muscle is going to be sore. And it's sore because you have torn apart the muscle fibers in that muscle. You've literally broken them. And then it's sore because you've broken them. Your body, with its amazing intelligence, then works towards putting those muscle fibers back together again. In the bringing back together again, the muscle fibers strengthen. Over time, you get a little bit of hurt and strength, a little bit hurt and strength, a little bit hurt and strength. Pull back together, pull back together, pull back together. And then, before you know it, you're looking in the mirror and you're just like, well, look at that bicep. I'm looking good. You've developed that stronger muscle. Mm-hmm. Same thing happens with our energetic heart. Your heart breaks. The energy fibers of your energetic heart are broken. They're all just hanging out there, sensitive on the ends there. The work of grief and I say the work of grief, not the I'm grieving. On purpose, I'm not saying anything there because, you know, that's me drinking the beer, lighting the joint with the candle, thinking I'm grieving. The work of grief, when we work thread by thread by thread to pull those threads back together, is what we're doing in the big life loss part of the journey. Pulling those energetic threads back together, because in the pulling them back together intentionally, you are strengthening your energetic heart, same way you would strengthen a bicep. And then once you have that stronger energetic heart now, not only do you feel less pain, less of the ouch, but that stronger energetic heart now has capacity for more love, compassion, joy, etc., which means you can invite more into your life because your heart has the capacity for it. So now you're ready to begin to build the next chapter for you with your stronger energetic heart, which is the next layer of your own version of big life magic.
Perfect. Thank you for that. There couldn't have been a better description of all of that as well. And one thing came to my mind though, is, as you know, when you're working out, because I'm kind of going through a thing of my own of like building muscle, and you work it, every now and again you need to take a break. You know, you can't be just working out, because there'll be, you know, you won't get the gains, as they call it. You know, so would you say that that's the way that process works, that every now and again there needs to be a rest day or rest days or rest periods when you allow that knitting to happen?
Yes, absolutely. See, the thing about, you know, a healing journey, and in particular a grief journey, well, not in particular, we're going to talk about a grief journey right now. A grief journey, which is a healing journey, it's not a straight line. It's not, even though my framework is moving from loss to magic, and there's literal steps in the loss, there's a bridge, and then there's steps in the magic. Mm-hmm. So you can look at that and say, oh, that's a straight line. It's linear. I move from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And, you know, it's developed in that way so we can see the scaffolding, we can see the map, the steps to take. But I let people know you're going to have your own journey. You may go, you know, through loss, think you're almost towards the magic, and then, whoa, you're all the way back at L of loss. So there's not only times when you need a break, there's times when it might feel like you're going backwards, or that everything stands still and you're not moving. And what I support people in understanding is your journey is not a straight line, it's a spiral. So we do return to places in the spiral where it feels like, God, I thought I'd healed that, but here I am again. Yeah, you are there again to deepen the learning or to gather something that wasn't gathered the first time you were in this energetic part of your healing. And sometimes the spiral will just stop because it just needs to breathe where it's at. It's also a co-creation between you earthbound, your energetic heart earthbound, and your energetic heart that connects with your soul. Give the soul a bit of time to play and expand too. And healing needs rest. And sometimes healing needs a kick up the ass. Sometimes you're thinking like, well, I'm really comfortable here and I feel like I've healed. And so you don't actually move forward, and then the spiral starts to get a bit stiff and not actually spinning. So absolutely there's a different cadence to different parts of the journey, and it's unique for everyone. The thing I like to share with people is it's okay to be where you are, but if you realize one day that you are stuck, that's when you want to be mindful of, this is the place I don't want to stay. It's fine to be still, but if you tune in one day and what you feel and what you respond to is, I feel a bit stuck, that's when it's time to like find a circuit breaker or do something to support yourself to move. And sometimes that is somebody else supporting you or something outside of you. to support you. Yeah.
Thank you. And moving through that process, what's the magic? What is the magic and the joy like?
You know, the magic is working with this stronger energetic heart and now creating what it is that you want next. So the people that I work with, for not everybody is grieving somebody who has died. So I work with people who have divorced. I've worked with people who got the diagnosis and then for a year or more, it was all about hospital visits and treatments. I've worked with people who, you know, the big dream that they had didn't come true. And so it's not always I'm getting over the fact that I've lost someone. Like big life loss is going to meet us all in different ways. But there's the opportunity then of the big life magic. So for me, my big life loss, it was sustained. And I was on the big life loss journey close to 5 years. And there's definitely magic within those 5 years. There's amazing healing and learning. Absolutely. And there's a lot of times where I stumbled off the path of big life loss. You know, my hope is that I support people to not have to take as long as I did. And part of why I think I took as long as I did is because I was also learning and in the curiosity and the discovery. I mean, all of this is in my memoir, A Series of Surrenders, those first 5 years after Sage's death. I mean, the memoir starts back with Nick's death, when Nick chose to take his own life. And all of that is through the memoir of this journey of navigating through the loss. And then the magic is when you feel energetically ready to step into possibility, what's next, and meeting this new vibration of where your energetic heart is at now. So I'm thinking, like, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking of a woman I'm working with who, she's been working with me for the past year, but she's also deeply connected to my community. So she's working with me in the Big Life Magic Makers, which is a community of women who work in their spiritual practice in community. It's a virtual community for magic makers, as well as she's doing some one-on-one work with me post-divorce. Married for 20 plus years, I think it's 27 years, a couple of children, like the whole life. It's a whole life, you know? And in the post-divorce, there's definitely repair on the energetic heart. And now you can see these sparks of possibility and magic that's coming with this woman choosing herself for the first time in 30 years. I mean, that's magic. Full stop. Understanding what love actually means to her. Completely redefining what she deserves in love. And I love this the most for her. She's learned how to say no. Oh, now to me, that's magic. And then from that energetic place, she can create whatever she wants. And when I tap in with her now, sure, there's still some days that really hurt and are tricky, and still navigating what's happening with the changing in the family dynamic, or what's happening with changing with now managing all aspects of her life. That's all still real. And she's grateful and she's hopeful and she's dating and she's got amazing new friends and she's loving herself. Like, that's the magic. Everyone gets to decide it. Like for me, my magic was realizing I don't want to live in the city anymore. Found myself connected to the Caribbean. Through that process, met my now husband, you know, and so connected to him, learned to love again. For me, my magic was claiming, well, you know what? I'm actually a spiritual teacher. I'm coming out. And you know what this spiritual teacher wants to do? She wants to write books. So I wrote my first book and published it. Like, that's the way the magic came out of me.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love I love the way that you've rounded it off as well. It's for anyone who's listening to this, because grief is such an unspoken, uncharted experience that no one ever really knows how, like you said before, no one knows how to do it. No one speaks about it. It's like, or even worse and more traumatic is to have people go like, you're not over that yet, just the cold, unfeeling ways that we respond to that. And it's not necessarily even that we're unfeeling, it's just that we don't know how to respond and how to serve that person. And in their despair just kind of shows us where we're lacking in our own compassion and our own awareness. And it's confronting to be confronted by something that you can't do, especially when somebody's in need and you lash out in a way that kind of, is going to be another blow on top of them as well. So it's just, I hope when people listen to this that they just hear things that kind of give them comfort, and also permission, permission to feel.
Absolutely.
Permission to not be through that place where you've landed yet, or if you feel you need to go back and kind of redo some stuff, or let go of this like front that you're putting on that everything's okay, like allow it not to be okay, get to the point where you want to be mush and you want to be messy, and let it last as long as it needs to last. And the people that are not there to support you, then give them a little bit of space, and like to whatever extent that you're able to do that, because sometimes it doesn't serve you putting on a brave face.
Nope.
For people who want to see a brave face from you, as opposed to who don't want to just ask questions of where you're at and what you're feeling, or just stay away from you if they don't know how to help you. Sometimes the busybodiness doesn't really help anything. I mean, do you have any closing words and thoughts that you can say to guide people through all this?
Yes, I do. This is what I share with people who are grieving, and also people who want to know, how can I help? Because it's common. It's just like, I don't know what to do. Like, how many times can you say, I'm sorry for your loss? Or call me if you need anything. Or, all the ways that we try to support each other in loss, because we really are lost inside our loss.
Yeah.
We don't know what to do. And so I advise people to ask, how is your heart? So if you know somebody is grieving or having a tricky time, don't ask them how they are, because maybe they don't know.
Right.
Grief can also mess up with our mental processing, and it's going to also change how we are minute to minute, day by day. And grief is actually all about your heart. Now, it doesn't matter if your heart is broken because you're divorced, or your heart is broken because somebody you love has died. Your heart is broken because your beloved dog is gone missing. Grief is not about the thing that happened or the person who is missing. Grief is about your heart. So go to the heart of the matter and ask, how is your heart? And then wait. Let the person speak or cry or scream, or even say, I don't know. And if you are somebody grieving and you're wishing that the people around you could just gently support you in a way that they don't know how, choose maybe 3 people in your life who love you and you know that they want to do the best that they can to support you, and say to them, can you please ask me, just maybe a couple of times a week, or if you're thinking about me and want to send me a text message, can you please just ask me how my heart is? That's what I want from you. Because that's what it's about. It's all about the heart. It's about repairing our energetic hearts, pulling the threads of our hearts back together so that our souls can bounce.
Debra, thank you so much. You provided so much value. There's something in this for everyone, even if it's not something you're going through now personally. Like you say, grief is going to happen on one level or another, whether it's going to happen to you or whether you're going to need to be the support. And in hearing this and just kind of taking on the truths that you've heard now, and just kind of, keep them in the back of your mind, so that when that time comes for you to move through your grief journey, or you see someone else going through it, then you've got, oh, I remember that I heard this, and let me try being in this way in that person's life and see how that helps. I mean, asking how someone's heart is, you can't get more close than that, really. You can't. It's more than just how are you feeling, because like you said, sometimes it's like, sometimes you feel nothing, and if you respond to an answer that nothing is the way that you feel, people read nothing as okay, because there's, oh, I don't feel anything, not realizing that numbness in itself is very indicative of you being disconnected from your nervous system, which is everything. So it's very, very, there's so much depth in here. So thank you so much. Before you sign off, please let everybody know where they can find you, and also if you have anything that's upcoming, any programs, and also speak about your book too as well.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I would be delighted to connect with anybody who wishes to know more for themselves or somebody that they love about their own heart repair, their own lost to magic journey. And the ways that you can connect to me are biglifemagic.com is the home of it all, where you can find my book, my services, and you can find links to all of the different ways that I support people. But what I'd like to bring forward now is my memoir, A Series of Surrenders, which you can, find it on all book platforms, or you can go to biglifemagic.com and go underneath the tab books and you'll find it. You can listen to A Series of Surrenders if you want me to tell you the story. There's the audiobook version, or there's the other Kindle or paperback. But this is what I really want you to know. If you go to my website and find The Series of Surrenders, the book page, and you scroll down, there's a special meditation that is free to anybody, and it's called Embraced by Grief. And in that meditation, I guide you to being with grief. I actually invite you to sit into the lap of grief so that grief can hold you. And this meditation I use a lot in my work to support people to just be in that surrendered moment with grief, not with anybody else, not with anything else, just that moment in time where you've surrendered to grief and are sitting in the lap of grief so grief can hold you. So Embraced by Grief is a meditation. You can only find it on that page on my website and through asking for your downloadable copy. It's not on my YouTube channel or anywhere else. I've specifically created that meditation to support people who need to be held. So there's always the book. I have a membership. There's the YouTube channel. There's all of the ways. And if there's any stories that you want to share with me, then feel free to send me an email.
Thank you so much, Debra. It's been a fantastic, enlightening chat. Loved it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debra, for a beautiful conversation, and thank you for listening. You can find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. And if you haven't yet, jump on board the Embody Her, the Embody Higher Energetic Resonance journey. The link to that is in the show notes. And also, if you've been considering working with me on a one-on-one basis, check the link in the show notes too. Find out more about spiritual life coaching and how that can assist and expand your life. Connect with me on Facebook under Carol May Whittick and on Instagram as Kazmic, Cazmick. So until the next week, enjoy this one. Take care.